Okay, good morning. We've got a couple people here. Looks like Mr. M, you've got about 14 attendances. That's cool. All right. So today's webinar, we're going to talk about algorithm trading with cryptocurrencies, and a little bit later on, I'm going to specifically go through and tell you which bot I'm using now. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them at any time. Just go to the Q&A tab, and we'll make sure that we get them answered. Okay, so in today's talk for about an hour, hour and a half with some of the Q&A, what we're going to try to cover is the goal of algorithm trading. So what I look at and what a lot of people with inside the cryptocurrency world look at for algorithm trading, what mindset is best to be able to not only grasp the concept, but also to understand what we're trying to accomplish here. Another one we're going to go over is the available softwares. And the ones that I'm looking at here are both some that are open source and some that are paid, and that have no programming that's required. The reason why I'm looking at those is because if you're programming it, you can build your own, but some of these will save you a ton of time, get you started really quickly, and you can just hop right out and get going. The second one is overview of exchanges that are able to even be traded on using bots, and then also what to look for when you're picking between, there's 7, 8, or 10 of them. So you want to make sure that you get the best ones. After that, we'll look at how to set up a bot. So we're actually going to run through an example of setting up Gunbot. I'm going to set it up on a Mac because that's what I'm running this presentation on. But also going through the setup is similar on Linux, and then also on Windows is probably the easiest one. We're going to look at different hosting environments and the pros and cons of each, where you can actually put your bot. The next one is going to be strategies. So this is where it gets technical, and you start to look at candle bars and charts to identify different areas that you can set a strategy for to make a trade and actually become profitable. Which kind of ties into how to deploy a strategy in the correct market conditions. That's extremely important because if you can't deploy in the right condition, you can potentially lose money, or your bot can be automatically losing you money when you sleep instead of making you money. Then we'll look at how to pick trading pairs. This is important because a lot of times it's just like picking a stock or a fiat currency, and if you don't pick a good pair, then the growth potential isn't there, and you look into getting into potential issues where you get a crap coin that's going to drop in value without you doing anything, and then you're never going to get your money back. So that one is actually quite important. Issues and potential problems to be aware of. That's on there as something we'll cover, but it's going to be woven into every single slide here. Where there's a pro, there might be a con, and there's also the potential for loss. And I want to make sure that's very well ingrained by the end of this, because anything that can magically make you money can also magically lose you money. And the last one is managing risk. So how do we address any of those issues and those potential problems? Managing risk is quite possibly the most important part of anything automated. So that one's going to be a pretty big focus, and kind of leads into a little bit more about backtesting. So we'll go into that towards the end of the presentation. So first off, how are we doing? Is the sound okay? Can everyone hear me all right? If you can, just give me a quick shout, and we should be good to go. Cool. All right, so quick intro, a little bit about myself. My name is Derek. I'm the founder of Coinimation, and what we do is we try to educate people on how to run a Gunbot and how to pick good pairs and how to build good strategies and change the mindset around algorithm trading to make sure that when you do buy or you do run a trading bot, you are as educated as you can be. I've started 3 startups in the past, sold one. currently a CTO of a company as well. And then also, I'm pretty heavy into AI and crypto. So I am a developer, and I do run quite a bit of research and also education programs. And this is my username on Telegram. So if you want to shoot me a message there, I can help you out with anything you need at any time. So a little bit about why I got started into crypto and also into automation. I wanted to get my feet wet, my hands dirty. I wanted to get in there and start trading, figure out what's going on. What can we do from a machine learning standpoint, from an AI standpoint, a high frequency standpoint? So I figured the best way was to get involved and just get learning. So the first thing I did was went out there and started looking at the different types of bots that were available. That's where I got involved with Gunbot, and that was probably a year ago now. And since then, I've just been moving forward and making sure that everything I do is well researched, and then also looking at how I can add a little bit of the human side to machines to make these bots even more powerful. So stay tuned for more that's coming up on that. It's actually a pretty big research project, but it should be pretty fun when it launches. So what is the goal of algorithm trading? The biggest one here is that people think it's high frequency, but it's not necessarily where you're ticking away and getting 0.3% on every trade. With algorithm trading, it's setting up a strategy that utilizes market conditions that you create to have it execute at any time when those conditions are met. The biggest misnomer here is that it's just going to, it might immediately and magically make you money, but it's a much more involved process than that, where you have to do the research on the top side to be able to then have the computer execute on the back end. So what that looks like is, I call it the D plus, is that what you want to do is win 51% of the time. So if you're making 100 trades, you want 51% to be profitable to cover the losses of the 49. Obviously, the higher the percentage of that, the better you do. But if you drop below 51, you're now just selling, you're just spending money, you're losing. So the goal here is to win as much as you possibly can. And the best way to do that is set good strategies, do good research, and then also pick good market opportunities, all of which we will cover later on. The most important thing here is what mindset is required for bot trading. The biggest ones are research. You need to make sure that everything you're doing is at least somewhat tested, or you have a good idea of what is going to happen in your gut, and then also if you have some technical analysis to back that up. So if you looked at the US dollar versus Bitcoin and you saw it skyrocketing, you could see two opportunities: jump on board, ride the train, or you could see the possibility for a correction. You could set your bot for either one of those two things, and if it hits a top point and it's able to hit an indicator and sell, then you just you rode the train successfully. But if you can set your bot for the opposite, the crash or the pullback, then you can actually win on the downside. So either one of those two conditions hits and you can win, but you need to research to know when those conditions can hit, or at least estimate when they can the best. The second one is to set up your bot. So you need to set it up, be confident that it's running, make sure that it's online, that the numbers that it's getting are the same that you're getting, and then you need to test it. So let it run, set up a new strategy, see how it executes in paper trading mode. So just testing it out without actually making live orders. And then the last one is patience. The biggest one that I get is when people come back a couple days after setting up their bot and say, it's not making me money, it hasn't made any trades. And I think that that's the best thing that could happen, because it's not at your parameters yet. It's not a good market opportunity to actually make the trades. So the biggest one is set it up, have faith in what you've done, and believe in yourself, and then let it ride. So you want to make sure that you give it time to execute strategies, and you can see those strategies run in a longer term. So with that, I'm going to take a sip of coffee. we're going to run into available software. So looking around, there's tons of different bots. I personally use the Gunbot for reasons I'll explain later. There's HazeBot or HasBot, Profit Trailer, Crypto Hopper, Crypto Trader, Gecko, and then a new one is Trader Plan out of Hong Kong. The reason why I use Gunbot and not the others is quite simple, because it's the most active developer community out there. A lot of the other ones are quite limited in scope and or open sourced, but Gunbot is very active in terms of people that are actually in there pushing it forward. There's thousands of people in their community that talk about trading. There's hundreds of people in their beta testing group, and then the developer team is actually pretty responsive. HazeBot as well is interesting, but they're usually more for a larger scale operation. So if you're using hundreds of thousands of US dollars worth of crypto or more, they would probably be your better bet. Profit Trailer is very similar to Gunbot, but runs in browser and only has a few strategies you can select from. Crypto Hopper, Crypto Trader, and Gecko are all open sourced. I love open source software, but when there's no centralized force that's earning off of it to move it forward, I don't like the speed at which they can respond. Now, Gecko is an interesting one because I've only played with it a bit, but it seems quite promising. But you do need to have some technical knowledge to be able to understand Gecko, which is one downside why I haven't picked it up, because it's harder to teach. Trader Plan is new. They're running out of Discord. I've been playing with it a little bit, but not long enough to have a full understanding. But it's interesting because they've taken away the need for a GUI or to run it on your own system, and they run it as a Discord bot. So you talk to it like you would on Telegram or on Facebook bot, but it's actually setting up your trades. I'll probably run a YouTube video about that one later on once I get a full understanding of it. So do we have any questions so far? I just want to keep that out there that you can just type them in the Q&A and it's all good to go. Okay, so I use Gunbot, so most of the info here and a lot of the tactics and strategies will be derived from my experiences on it. So I briefly touched on it. The reason why I use it is because they have a very good community of developers. There's a ton of people out there that are developing new strategies on it. There's a lot of tools that are available to help run it better. And then there's a couple of really powerful backtesting scripts that community members have built. So it's very good to see a community where both the users and the developers are extremely active in creating new stuff for it. So the next one is finding an exchange. If you were going to go with the Gunbot, they support 7, including GDAX, Binance, Bittrex, Poloniex, and what's the other one? Bitfinex. So they've got the bigger ones down, but it comes down to the smaller ones where you might have an issue. If you're going to go it on your own and build your own bot and have it deployed manually, the things you want to look at the most, obviously they need an API. So if they don't have an API, they're immediately withdrawn from being a candidate for trading. The second one is look at the fee structure. Some, like Kraken, have a fee structure that the more you trade, the less the fees are per trade. Others are fixed, so if you make 1,000 trades worth $1 million, they don't reduce your fees at all. And others are free to trade too. So it's one where you want to be very cognizant of, because with algorithm trading, it can click out a bunch of trades really quickly if it needs to. And at the end of the day, after any taxes you might incur, your fees are going to be where the rest of your money is tied up. So be very aware of that. The next one is pairs. So if you look at the difference between, let's use Kraken and Binance. Kraken has, a couple dozen pairs to trade, but Binance has hundreds. If you want to get into more of the altcoins, then you're going to want to look at, Bittrex, Binance, Bitfinex. And if you want to stick to more fiat and traditional pairs that are a bit larger in volume and also in market cap, then looking at something like Kraken would be a good deal, because every exchange has different pairs. You have to look at them to see which ones you actually want, and we'll talk about how to pick pairs later on. But the more the merrier if you're into altcoins. But if you just want the big ones, you can stick to an exchange that has smaller. Um, I should probably refocus this from your local laws to be next, because different exchanges only allow certain people with certain passports to join from certain countries. Some IPs are blocked for an entire country or an entire region. So you need to make sure that you can actually log in and create an account with the exchange you want to trade on. Otherwise, you're going to get as far as you can and then find out you can't do it. Your bot's going to be blocked, and then you're going to get upset. So make sure you can actually trade on that exchange before you start a bot on it. The withdraw deposit currency, that one is purely a nice to have, but not a need to have. If you can withdraw into your bank account, if you want to do that, that's great. Some will do that, some will not. Bittrex will not. But it really comes down to whether or not you want to have your bots exchange, withdraw the cash to your bank or just to another account. Also, what currency do you want that in? Do you want to withdraw from the bot with Bitcoin, Litecoin, or US dollars? So that's where it comes into play. The next one is reporting, and this one is actually pretty important. Further along I get into algo trading, having built-in reporting into the actual exchange is cool, because then it saves you a ton of time on an Excel file. And the bot itself, at least for Gunbot, the reporting is okay, but it's not perfect. It's not optimal. So I would definitely say if you can find an exchange that has a good reporting system in it, you're already going to have a better time. So I use Bittrex for it. So again, most of the info here will be derived from experiences using that. And the reason why I use Bittrex is because they had a couple of altcoins that I wanted to trade that weren't available on other exchanges at the time. And since then, they have become available on other exchanges, but I've just become accustomed to using Bittrex because they have decent volumes, their trade orders go through, and I haven't had too much downtime with them to really even make it of note. So I have stuck with them. Their fees are kind of wonky given the fact that everyone else is starting to reduce their fees and have scaled fee features. So I might be changing in the future, but for now, I'm there and I'm relatively happy. So the next part is actually how to set up a bot, and I'm going to do a demo on Mac. So let's see if we can get this to share my screen. Okay, so here you see what I see, and what we're going to do is we're going to actually run into my terminal. So the first thing you would do is download the bot, and I have a link to that both on our website at coinimation.com as well as in the handout that I have attached. And what you do after downloading that, keep it in your folder, unzip it, typical stuff. But on Mac, it's a little bit different. So I'm going to run through it kind of quickly. If you have a PC, all you need to do is literally download it, unzip it, and start running it. That's it. But on a Mac, you have to go through a few different things. You navigate first to your folder that has it, and you have to do a chmod to actually make it an executable file. So I'm going to do that with the GUI. And then what I want to do is then run it. Yeah. And the demo gods are here. Okay. 1 second, please. So this would be a good time to answer or ask any questions you have. And I'm going to get this sorted out, and I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that. So what was happening is that I saved the Gunbot onto my secondary hard drive, and it's not letting me run it right now. So what I've done is I have launched my uh, VPS, and I'm going to remote into it, and we are going to run it. Okay. All right, so I'm going to share the screen again. Entire screen, sure. Okay. So now this is the Gunbot running on the on my VPS. So when you launch it, no, come on. When you launch it, it's going to show this. This is Windows, and what I've done is I've just double-clicked on the Gunbot executable for the GUI, and it launched right into here. So I go to localhost 5000. It's going to immediately come here. I can create a new password. So this one is going to be test. Okay, so it tells you to please save it. Great. Immediately, right when you get in, you're going to see to import your settings from an existing config file. But since you don't have one necessarily, you don't need to do that. So let's start with that import. This is where you would select the exchange that you want to trade on. So for this one, let's just go to Binance. And key is ASDF. Let's just do a test because I'm not actually going to run this one. And then master key, you would do yes. I've had a lot of questions specifically around Gunbot for master key. It acts like your very first purchased key. So once you have your first exchange set up, that's always your master key. After that, any new exchanges are not a master key. So I would add here. Okay. And so in that example, if I wanted to do 2, then I would add more keys, and then they would be not a master key. But let's go to setup so I can show you what's going on here. So I'm going to do this as a webinar setup. And let's pick a pair. Let's do Bitcoin to use their example, Dash. The strategy here is really just a placeholder. You can always change that later. So I'll do a Bollinger Band, and we're going to go over this stuff later too, so don't worry there. Binance, let's add the pair. So down here, it's going to show me a chart, and this chart's going to be Dash, and then also the Bollinger Bands on top of it. So within here, you can see, it's down a bit, but what I want to do is go to overrides, and this is where you can modify any of the settings that are available inside of Gunbot. So if I wanted to add a new override, I would say period. I want it to be looking at candlesticks every 15 minutes. So let's head down here. Let's create this. Okay, so now I can go to the dashboard and run back to the dashboard and then run it. What's going to happen here is that it's going to pop up. We're going to allow it some access here for a minute. You don't. And I'm getting an error, I'm sure, because I don't have a good API key. Great. Okay, so what would happen is if I had a good API key, I would get this. And all it would be doing is running through the entire set of pairs that I've picked, and then making sure that they have an opportunity to buy or sell. And whenever they do, it would buy it or it would sell it. So you can see here, like the profit from the last sale, and it's on round 1, and it's going to click through and do this forever until it turns off. Cool. So I see a chat thing. Go. Am I alone? Who doesn't see the screen moving? Oh, great. Did you guys see any of that demo? Okay. So again, feel free to ask any questions if you feel like you want me to answer something a little bit further, either in chat or in Q&A. And again, this is a pretty quick overview. We do have a YouTube channel where we go over a lot of it. The iPhone client. Okay. So Mr. M on that, if you want to, you can watch the recording and it will have all that. So you can check it out. Get into the JSON editor. Okay. So the JSON editor is part of the config file, but you don't need to edit JSON if you are using the graphic interface. But I think you might be referring to the override section. It's just a scroll down. So you just scroll down from the initial top bar where you set up all your settings. There's a lot of buttons. You just scroll down. It's on the left-hand side. Yeah, no worries. Okay. So the next one is the hosting environments. Oh, no worries, Mr. M. So the hosting environments that I've used in the past, of course, I've used AWS, and I like their platform for having a VPS. But one of the problems is that the tiny ones on the free tier don't perform as well as would be optimal, and it can lead to crashes because it doesn't have enough RAM. The best one I found was the medium tier, but then you're looking at $30 to $40 a month just to host the VPS, and that's fine if you're using quite a big volume and you can make a couple of percent here and there actually pays for that. But I've always been just testing, so I actually ended up using an old gaming computer and just hopped up its RAM a little bit and plugged it in, made it headless, and now I just run it with a gigabit internet access. So it's never going anywhere. But you can also run it on your laptop. You can run it on your desktop. The only problem there is that if you shut those machines down, they stop running. So it's not always on. It will work on Windows, it'll work on Mac, it'll work on Linux, and it'll actually work on a Raspberry Pi. I did a test earlier this year on a Raspberry Pi, and it was okay. I wouldn't say it was the fastest thing. So it takes a lot of processing power to click through each trade and make the right computations. The Raspberry Pi was actually quite limited in that. It didn't crash ever. I ran it for about 3 weeks straight, and it did not crash once. But it was a bit slow. I did notice that it would miss a few things because it wasn't able to process it fast enough. Okay, so here's where the meat comes in, the trading strategies. Inside of Gunbot, there's a bunch of individually created strategies that have a specific purpose. And keep in mind while we're going through this that they can all be mixed and matched. And that'll make more sense later on. But just I wanted to get that out of the way first. The first one and the most basic one is gain. So what this one's going to do is it's going to look at the EMA, exponential moving average, and it's going to make sure that it buys or sells a specific percentage above or below. So in this example that we've got here, if you see we want to buy at 2% below. So it'll buy around here. And then what it's going to do is wait until it's 2% above to then sell. So a better example of that would be down here it bought, and up here it sold. So that way you can put a very basic strategy in place that will literally just follow the EMA. Now there's a more advanced version of that, which is the step gain. And the step gain works very similar, but it has intervals. And the coolest thing about this is you can set it to buy at a percentage below the EMA, but also sell, and it has these little sell gates or even buy gates, but I like to use the sell side. The sell gates work as a one-way entry. So if it hits, in this example, 2%, then it'll never sell below that. So if this next candlestick kind of goes up and down a little bit and then closes down, it'll sell before it hits anywhere beneath the 2% mark. So you're guaranteed to make 2% on that gain. The difference between step gain and gain is gain would just sell it now. You would never see this upside. You'd never see the upside here. But with step gain, it'll cross that gate, never look back. And then if you set your next one to 4.5, when it hits 4.8 above here, it's going to put a sell order in to sell it at 4.8. So you get 4.8% on this trade, or let's say 4.5, and then it would range a little bit here. You would miss this part, but you would also not be stuck down here. So you would get your defined range of gains, and you would not lose down to 2% or even lower. So the step gain is actually pretty powerful, especially when you're using a good buying strategy, because then it lets you control how much you want to take, like your take profit. The most popular one, and also one of the more basic ones, is the Bollinger Band strategy. This is actually one that I use quite a bit in a ranging pair, where the price isn't going up and down too fast, but staying quite steady, because you can narrow it, and then you can just get a ton of back and forth action at any price point. So I'll break it down a little bit. Bollinger Bands are basically a standard deviation from the EMA, and also the SMA, the simple moving average, where you can see here, like, the more volatility, the wider the band is. But what you want to look for is the intersection points. So you've got, like, down here is crossing the line, down here is crossing a band, up here is crossing a band, you got a band crossing here, as well here. So what you can do is set a Bollinger Band buy to 0, and it'll only buy when it crosses the bottom line here. Let me get a new color for that, sorry. A 0 Bollinger Band will buy at the very bottom line, and a 0 Bollinger Band sell would only sell at the top line. So the cool thing about it is you can set this one and kind of walk away as long as you have a stop limit on it. And whenever it hits the bottom, it'll buy, and hit the top, it'll sell. So in this example, it would have bought, let me get a different color for you again. It would have bought here, and then it would have crossed over here and sold up there. So you'd make a profit there. The downside is that it would have bought here, and then it would be waiting, you'd be holding the bag until it sells somewhere in the future. So the Bollinger Band strategy is quite good, especially if you have a stop loss that you're quite tight on, because you definitely don't want this to then have a downturn and then get you stuck, because then you'll have to sell it or buy it at the end, which could take months. So this one you can adjust. You can have it to be 100, which is right on the middle line, which would be pointless. Or you can have anywhere from 0 to 100% away from the bottom or top line. Again, I run it usually at 0, 0 if I'm running it, just because I want the maximum. But you can also run it in a ranging strategy, 25, 25, or 50, 50, and then you're going to be midway through the bands, and you can get a lot of price volatility. Pingpong is actually a pretty powerful one of late with Bitcoin to US dollar and Ethereum to US dollar. You can set defined points. So in the past couple of weeks, where it's been $7,900 Bitcoin to 9,000, if you were to put those as buy and sell points, you would just constantly be racking up 20% trades. buy at 79, sell at 9,000, buy at 79, sell at 9,000. So it would just be doing that constantly. This one works well, especially in Forex, when you have a very defined point where you can buy in and a very defined point where you can sell out, and it goes back and forth to that one quite a bit. This one is very heavily skewed towards people that are extremely patient. And again, if you put a stop loss on there, you need to, because if you see here and it buys, it's going to have a massive drawdown until it goes back up again to sell. So really in this one, a ping pong strategy would be kind of scary, because if you look at the dates closely, which I don't think you can too well, this is almost a month. So you're at a month and you're going down by 50% just to get a random spike up here to then be able to sell it. So if you had a stop loss around this point, you'd be much better off to then go back here and buy up where you have no drawdown. You can make other trades in this time frame and then go back up. So again, this one's all got to be mitigated with risk management, and then also you have to be very patient for a ping pong strategy to work, especially on a long-term trade. So one of the more recent additions is the trailing stop loss. This one I've just been playing with a bit. I still have a lot to learn with it, but it's extremely powerful on the sell side. And what I mean by that is, just like in gain or even step gain, you define a range where it will sell at. So if you buy down at the bottom, as an example, and you want to make 1% gain on this, when it goes up by 1%, it won't sell, but it'll readjust the new point to sell. So what you want to do is set it at 1, it'll go up, and now the new price to sell is here. If it goes down, like it did here, it'll sell it. Oh, sorry. But what happens is it creates a new sell point. If it goes up by another 1%, then it'll do the same thing. This is the new price to sell. And if it goes up another %, new price to sell. And it goes up again, new price to sell. So it'll keep doing this until it actually triggers that sell number, at which point then you'll go out. But the cool thing is, instead of being at 1% gain down here, now you're at 15% up here. So that allows you to have a lot larger coverage of any gains. And it lets you just have a little bit more hands-off, where it'll try to pick the best exit point for you and try to sell it at that best exit point. The inverse of this is true as well. It will work to do a buy, so it'll keep trying to find the lowest point and the lowest point and the lowest point. And then when that reverses, it'll buy it. So if you just flip this graph upside down, it would do the same thing. A little tidbit about these is that you can mix and match any of them in Gunbot. So if you wanted to do a Bollinger Band buy and a TSSL sell, you can absolutely do that. What I usually run is a Bollinger Band or a gain buy, and then a TSSL or a step gain sell, depending on the pair. The reason why I do it is because I like TSSL on a longer term trade strategy, and I like step gain on a shorter term. So both of those two things have worked out pretty well in the past. So now that you have an idea a little bit about the strategies, it's about applying them to the right market conditions. So in this graph, we've got a ton of different market conditions. If you look at it, you can see ranges. Let me get a new color. Ranges here, where the trades aren't moving too fast. And then you have growth areas, you have decline areas, and in between there you have a little bit more volatile ranging area with a gain at the end. Then you have like a slow and steady decline, but could also be, depending on your risk tolerance, a little bit of a range as well. So in this, what I would do is have a Bollinger Band strategy set up here. And the reason why is because I want to be able to capitalize on all the different fluctuations, but not huge price gains with a tighter band. The problem is that once it starts to spike here, I might not make as much on the actual sell. So on the next crash, I can change it up and then start to see this price going crazy. If I want to get in on this action, then I can just turn on a Bollinger Band buy and then a TSSL sell. So it'll look for a price point to get in, which would probably be, I'll get a new color again, right around here. And then it'll ride this all the way to the top and it will sell roughly around this point. So then I would have had that maximum gain, but I would have to also turn on the ability for it to not buy after I sell this particular point here. Typically after a large spike like this, you don't want to buy immediately after it sells. Otherwise you'll get stuck with a price up here and hold it forever. So you can turn on buy enabled false, which will just let you hold and never buy again. And then also you can turn on some RSI indicators, because up here your RSI is probably going to be way over 70. And then you'd only want to buy when it gets down here. So down in this area, you would be telling the bot not to buy on any of these conditions at all. And then what you want to do is turn it back to Bollinger Band or another strategy that's comfortable for a ranged. And you can turn it on again down here. Again, it's one of those things where you have to be constantly monitoring it and then letting it ride and letting it do its own thing. So I have a question here. Is it possible to run multiple buy and sell strategies at the same time in the same bot? Yes, it is. However, you can run multiple buy and sell strategies for different pairs. So if you were running a Bitcoin to Dash, you could run, a Bollinger Band buy, TSSL sell, but you wouldn't be able to run a different strategy on the same pair. So you couldn't run two different ways on Dash. You'd have to run one strategy on Dash, or one combination of strategies on Dash, one combination of strategies on OMG. So I hope that answers your question. You can run multiple strategies. Every pair can be different, but you can't have two pairs running at the same time, because then it'll be confused and it'll buy and sell, and it won't actually make you money. It'll just pay fees. Okay, so market conditions. I was going to run through a demo of that as well. Let me get the screen sharing. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see. And let's get rid of some indicators here. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see what we're going on. So again, I chose OMG on Bitfinex. So right now, this is what we're seeing. And let me turn off all of these indicators. This is what we're seeing on OMG. And let's see, 15-minute intervals. Cool, good. If I zoom out a bit and see what's going on for the day, we can see that it's kind of up and down a little bit. If I zoom out even further, I want to see where it's going. Give me an hour. Okay, so we're on a downtrend. It doesn't seem to be recovering too much, but it's also not crashing too hard on a daily basis. So what I would probably run at for right now, go back to my trading window, 15 minutes. Let's see, let's throw a Bollinger Band on here. Let's see what it's looking like. Insert indicator. So if you look here, you can see that we would have entry points here with exits up here. So 6%. If I was at 0 and 0, 2.5, 3.4, and then it's looking like it's going up in the short term. So I would throw a 0 and 0 Bollinger Band strategy on this one for today. And then I'd reassess and see what's going on. If we look back at the 1 days, you can see that we've got an RSI that's pretty close to 35. So it might drop further. It looks like it's going down a bit. I would wait for that to either hit below 30 on a daily RSI number, or at least start to recover before I threw anything like a TSSL or a step gain onto that particular pair. Especially since it's had a massive spike last year and it's crashed a little bit during January. It looks like it's recovered a bit, which is great. So it might come back to its original time, but I'm not. It doesn't look like it's going to be too bullish. Cool. Yes, I got another question. Can we define conditions for bot in which it wouldn't work to stop a particular strategy? Yes. So some of the settings you can set up allow you to define the buying parameters, and if the buying parameters are not what the market is showing, then it won't work. So it works as a protection against buying in a bad trade. If you, like I was just demoing real quickly about the RSI, if you want to only buy at a certain RSI level per period, then you can definitely set that, as well as a few other indicators that will allow you to put a little bit more control on when the orders are placed. So that way you can effectively control the bot's performance. Nope. You can just add those. It does not require coding knowledge. You can just add those in as an override, and it's quite simple. So if you know all the different settings you can change are on the Gunbot wiki, and you just go in and say, I want to change the RSI buy level to be 30, and then you just dump that in to the override section, and that's it. You just make sure you save it and redeploy. That's all you need to do. It doesn't require any massive amounts of code. No worries. Okay, so we talked about it in the beginning, picking trading pairs. This one is actually straightforward, but again, research, due diligence, all of those things are very important. So if we go to I'm going to go back to my other window. Oops, I need to start screen sharing again. Okay, so if we go back to the other window, one way that I've done quite well with picking pairs is heading to coin market cap. And what I like to do is going to trade volume. So if you click on trade volume, head down to 24-hour rankings for exchange. Now I want to get to Bittrex. So I've got down here, and if you click on the actual exchange itself, it'll show you all of them. Like I mentioned, I'm using Bittrex for mine, so you can choose whichever one you want. But if you look here at the volume, you've got a bunch of different coins that are in the top, I think it shows the top 100. Oh no, it goes way further. Cool. So it shows all the different coins up here and their volumes. Now, one thing with trading like this is that if you place an order, you want it to get executed immediately. If there's not a ton of trading volume in 24 hours, the likelihood of you hitting a price at a price point is low. One aim that I always have is above 500,000 US dollars for a 24-hour trading volume. So the one we were just looking at, OMG, barely hits that threshold. They've got $506,000 of trading volume in 24 hours. So they would still be a candidate for me, but it's very close to not being eligible. If we look at the top 20, they usually have over 1 million. This one's the top 20 now is 1.6 million. So that's against Ethereum. For DMT, that would probably be my cutoff nowadays. but most of these I'm already trading against anyhow. You want to look at a few of these, like PivX. I'm going to open that in a new window. I'm going to also, I know DMT, I believe, just launched onto Bittrex, so it's probably a massive spike, but also not a lot of history. So one thing you want to look at is, when did this go live? And when did it go live on your exchange? Because that also has a big indicator about whether or not it's going to be a performer in the future. And you can also look at it on different exchanges, see what their price point is, who's going to be a leader of this, who's not. Since I just saw that they launched on Bittrex the other day, I would take a look at their website and let's see what they're about. Are they just another thing, or are they actually got okay, so they have a business, looks like they're selling stuff. I'd obviously dig a little bit deeper than just looking at their webpage. But see what they're doing, because at the end of the day, you are investing in this company and also in this idea. So if you don't want bags, the best bet is to look at companies and pairs and coins that actually have importance to you, and can be something that if you got stuck with it, you'd be happy to hold it because you believe in them. So PivX in the past, it's very volatile, but it looks like it's on an uptrend of sorts. Again, I can't guarantee or even guess which ones of these are going to be profitable for you. But if you do your own diligence and you believe in it, then it's good to go. And again, make sure the volume is up. So if you get a random price point, you can try to hit it. Okay, how to pick pairs DDI. What is DDI? So again, I weed through the shit coins, look at the top volume, analyze the charts, figure out where they're going, and make sure that your strategy is built upon your belief in that company and that pair. Okay, so the biggest one, managing risk, and I'm going to try to get this out. We might be 5 minutes late, but let's try to get through this, because this is the most important part, hence the red. One of the best ways to do a good amount of risk management or mitigation is by backtesting. So there's a lot of free scripts out there. The handout file has the scripts from Alistair, who is a Gunbot community member, who has created these things on tradingview.com that allow you to backtest. And what I want to show you again is this backtesting script he's got. So back here on OMG, I'm going to remove the Bollinger Band, and I'm going to insert a private script. And if you look here, you can see with my settings, where's my settings? There we go. Which is, and we're looking at Bollinger Band strategy with EMA at 8 candlesticks, EMA 2 long at 16 candlesticks. Pretty much the basic stuff that Gunbot comes out of the box with at 1, but I'm going to change that to 0 just because I've talked about 0 with you guys before. From January 1st, 2018 till today, it would have had a 102% net profit with 2 trades. Again, here's that 50% profitable, a huge drawdown. If we look at the list of trades a little bit closer here, this one lost 72%, so it actually hit the stop loss, and this one gained 622%. So it's one of those things where it doesn't always make sense right away. So you got to kind of dig down and change it a bit. So that's why I'm believing here. I need to put the date range. There we go. Okay, so now that I've set it to be actually January 1st, it hasn't made any trades based on those strategies. So what I do quite a bit, I try to find a good strategy that would actually make a good return on it. So I changed the high BB or the high Bollinger Band to 25% off, the low one to 25% off. And I've only got one purchase. So again, this strategy wouldn't buy anything. Let's change that a bit to 35. I really just want to get something down here so you can see it and how a backtest would function. Oh, we're on period day, that's why. Here we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so on this particular one, the issue there was that I was running it on the day candlestick, not the minute candlestick. So now I'm at 15 minutes. This particular strategy would lose 16%. It's got a massive stop loss on there of 20. So let's throw that down to 5. And let's change that back down to 0. Favorite. So if you see, it's still showing a loss. So what we need to do in this backtesting is try to figure out how you can get the net profit to positive, where the percent profitable is above 51 and your drawdown as low as possible. 20, 25 is probably the maximum you want to do. And then the average number of bars and trades is 71. So if you take 71 times 15 is 1,065. 1,065 divided by 60, that's 17 hours. So it's a long window to make a trade. These scripts also are linked in my handouts, and I'll also submit links to them as well on our website, and also our YouTube channel has tons of links to it. They are free, and they do allow you to backtest a lot of different strategies that are built into Gunbot to allow you to hit a point where you are comfortable knowing that your previous settings would have made money. Your future settings can hopefully do the same. Again, backtesting is not seeing the future. It's really just understanding the past and how your settings react with that particular pair. So this would be an example of one that was a profitable trade from a backtest. It was January 1st to today on Litecoin, and it was just a Bollinger Band with an RSI indicator of 35 to buy and 70 to sell. And if you look at it, it had a gross profit of 13%, net profit of 12. It had a 21% drawdown, and it was against a buy and hold return of 1.8%. So that beat the buy and hold by almost 10x. And that's what you're looking for. These are the kind of backtesting strategies that you would like to see and would be a good one to then invest in as well. Because at the end of the day, if you just buy it and hold it, that's great. But you want to try to beat that number. That's what this is all about. So I did the backtest demo first instead of showing it. So if you have questions on that, let me know. Let's see. The other one is managing bags. For those of you who have done trading in the past, a bag is the term for a shit investment that you have to hold on to for a long time. So if you bought Bitcoin at 19,000 in December last year, and now it's at 8 or 7,000, then you've got yourself a bag. So you've lost a lot. And one thing that we try to do here is, because it's all automated, we want to manage that, because if it's tied up somewhere and it's held somewhere, you can't use it to make any investment money on other pairs. So the biggest one is prevention. If you can prevent the bag from ever existing, that's great. Prevention is done by backtesting, by doing research in the company, by checking out what they're saying about what they're launching, any product launches, any news or issues about them, any scandals, because this is the crypto world. And then also stop losses. So if you're comfortable with losing 2 to 3%, that's fine, because that might indicate a bad trade on a short term. And it might save you from getting one that's going to drop 70%. So it's all about playing your own risk levels. The second one is weight. I don't like this one because I don't like to hold negative value for that long. But if you do get stuck with a bag, sometimes you can wait it out. If it's not too big, it might recover. But sometimes if you end up waiting, you're going to wait forever, and then you're going to be stuck with it for months, which is terrible. And the last one is if you're at that waiting point and you feel like it's starting to recover a bit, you can average it down automatically in the bot by doubling up. And what you do with the double up is you set a point where it will buy more at the lower price. So then if it recovers and goes up another 50% or whatever over time, then your actual break-even point is lowered. So if you bought in high and you buy in again very low, if it recovers just half the way, you're actually profitable on the whole. So you can do that in the bot. I usually do not, but I also have a very small or very short stop loss. So I don't ever get down to a point where I would need to double up. So the biggest takeaways now that we're about 4 minutes over is loss limits are extremely important. Finding a backtest percentage that wins over the average win. So basically, can you beat a buy and hold? So if you were to buy one share or $1 or one OMG January 1st, and then trade one OMG, which one would win more? Which one would be worth more at the end of the month? And then the other one is that BTC, so Bitcoin surges, can be a killer for any altcoin investments that you're doing, as we all probably are aware of. The more they become decoupled is great, but still, when Bitcoin surges, it typically destroys a lot of the other pairs. So that's why I have short tolerances on my stop losses, because if Bitcoin decides to go up 20%, then most other coins are going to go down at least 5 to 6%, if not 20 or more. So I try to mitigate that as best as possible. The other big takeaway is what can automatically make profit can automatically make loss. That's why you need to be cognizant of your research, cognizant of your loss limits, and then also your own risk profile. Because if you're asleep and your bot's running and you don't have it set up to run correctly, it's not AI. It will do what you tell it to do. And if that is to lose money, it'll do it. So you got to be careful with that. And again, I can't caution enough being sure of your loss limits. The other one is simple strategies and monitoring is the best way. Keep your eye on it. Make sure it's working. Make sure the markets are doing what you want them to do. Identify the opportunities based upon the market conditions, and then make simple strategies. The more complicated it is, the more likely you have points of failure that can cause a loss or can cause the gains to not be proper, or you can either get out too early or too late. So keep it simple. That's always the best way, so you can understand it in your head as well. And then the last one is patience. These bots take time to work because the markets take time to work. And the biggest way to lose money is to be impatient, especially in crypto, because things go way too fast and you can stress yourself out and burn out real quick. So definitely take it slow. And that's it. We have a YouTube channel, Telegram. We have a Discord group. All the links are here. And yeah, if you have questions, just feel free to give me a shout. We do also sell the Gunbot, so if you do want to take a look at that, check it out. And I'll open it up for questions. Anything you want to ask, just let me know, and I'll stick around for a couple more minutes until I've tried to answer as many questions as possible. Again, thanks guys for coming in and taking time to listen and learn a little bit about automated trading. My name is Derek, and I'm here and online pretty much 24/7 to answer questions. So let me know if you have any. Thanks.